Shalom, it's your brother Darash Shamat, and I'm back with another lesson. Before I get started, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakodash, and double honors to our elders and apostles at Great Millstone for bringing out this truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect, which includes the 144,000 and the rest of the elect out there scattered around the world, including those speckled bird Israelites who may look like the other nations but are not. This is not a black thing. So this one goes out to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, as the scriptures were written unto the 12 tribes of Israel, not the other nations. So let's jump right into it. This is going to be a lesson titled Back to the Basics, the Hell Fable. All right, so what I want everyone to take away from this lesson is that hell is not a place where after you die, you get sent to hell and you just burn forever. All right? Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is a merciful power. Okay? So the understanding of that most people currently have in the Christian church is because of the introduction of, paganism and the Catholic Church trying to scare people into basically follow their religion, the universal church, the Catholic Church. All right? So the Bible translates hell in the Old Testament to Sheol, or the grave, which we'll get into. In the New Testament, you can find translations of it into Hades, okay, and also into Gehenna, all right? And so that's what we're going to jump right into. So overarchingly, hell is speaking about being in a low estate. So being on the bottom, like being in captivity or being in the grave, okay, like, death, all right? That's one instance. Another way hell is portrayed when you look at Gehenna in the New Testament, something that we'll get to. Gehenna was used basically as a reference to give the Israelites visualization because it's something that they saw. Yahushua likes to speak in parables. It's a place where they burn trash and stuff. So it was a good representation of the coming judgment, okay, that will fall, on, basically the non-believers. All right, going into, what's going to happen. The prophets are always talking about this destruction that's going to come to Babylon the Great, aka America. It's going to be just like Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, so let's jump into it. This is Psalms 86:13. It says, "For great is his mercy toward me, and thou hast delivered my soul from the lowest hell." All right, and so, King David, we know that King David was a man after the Heavenly Father's own heart. So you're saying that King David went to hell and then he came back? No. He's talking about from his lowest state. Okay? Think about all the stuff that King David went through, all right? Started off with, basically being chased around by King Saul, okay? People trying to take his life. Then he committed, murder and adultery. And then Yahweh said, you're going to pay for that. There's not going to be peace in your household. All right, so he got in the lowest state then. His own son, slept with his wives, his concubines, I would say. All right, and, basically had turned the kingdom against him in a way. All right, so he's been through, King David went through a lot. Okay, he was in a low place. All right, just like, many of us in this life, we've been in a low place sometimes. All right, so if you think of how the world works, all right, as far as there's somebody in rulership and there's somebody on the bottom. Our people, the Israelites, are currently on the bottom. The people on the top are the Edomites, all right? Because the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. They are in their heaven. At least the elite are. They're not sharing the blessing with all their people, okay? Because they're wicked. They're selfish like that. But Yahushua said it himself. I saw Satan falling from heaven like lightning, all right? Not talking about the spiritual demon Satan coming out of heaven. No, talking about Esau, Edom falling out of his rulership. All right? And when we get into the kingdom, he's going to be in his hell. All right? Because we're going to put hell on him. All right? So let's go look at this word hell. Hell. And it's Sheol. And it says Sheol, underworld, grave, hell, pit. The underworld. Sheol, the Old Testament designation for the abode of the dead. It says a place of no return without praise of power, wicked sent there for punishment, righteous not abandoned to it, of the place of exile, of extreme degradation and sin. And it says Hades, or the world of the dead, as if subterranean retreat, including its accessories and inmates, grave, hell, pit. All right, so that's the definition as defined, but it's not some place where you go and you burn forever. Okay, it's literally speaking of the grave, all right, or being in a lower state. All right, that's all that is speaking of. Okay, that's one understanding that I want y'all to get to understanding of. All right, but let's look at it. Let's see. This is Gehenna, Sheol. All right. So this is from the Zondervan Illustrated Bible Dictionary. It says Sheol, derivation disputed. Suggestions include a place of inquiry, alluding to necromancy and desolation, destruction, a place where the dead were believed to dwell. The Hebrew term is used 65 times in the Old Testament, and more than half of its occurrences are found in the wisdom literature. The KJV translated it as the grave or hell, the pit 3 times. The NIV usually renders it the grave, but occasionally gives such contextual renderings as realm of the dead. All right, and you see death and depths. The NRSV and other modern versions use the transliteration Sheol. The Hebrews evidently shared with their contemporaries the belief that there was a region occupied by the dead as a shadowy underworld existence. A number of obvious parallels exist between the biblical descriptions and references in extra biblical literature. According to the Old Testament, the realm of the dead was a place of darkness. It was also viewed as a place of silence whose inhabitants cannot praise power. The inhabitants of Sheol are but a shadow of their former selves. In fact, they are called by the term that means shades. Sheol is a place of continued existence rather than annihilation, and it does not lie beyond the reach of power. An important question regarding Sheol is this: at death, did the Old Testament believers go to such a place of gloom, or did they go to be with Yahweh immediately? Well, the scriptures tell us. Okay, the spirit returns to the one who gave it. All right, so it returns to Yahweh by Shem Shai. Okay, the former view it as prevalent in. The former viewed as prevalent in the early church, which also held that Hamashiach at his death descended into Sheol, which is a precept that we're going to get. And they should put Hades in parentheses to bring the Old Testament believers to heaven with him. Now that's a fable that the Christian church talks about, because they believe that Sheol is some place that you go when you die and you're tormented. But that's not what the scriptures is talking about. Hamashiach was in the grave, okay, for 3 days, all right? And then the Heavenly Father rose him up before his body saw corruption, okay? His body didn't decay. The latter view is held by those who believe that the Sheol concept was held by the Israelites in common with their pagan neighbors until Paul gradually revealed more and more information about the life after death, climaxing his revelation in Hamashiach, who brought life and immortality to light. Both views contain considerable difficulties. All right. No, that whole Sheol, the whole like hell thing as a place where you go and you're tormented forever. That's a pagan doctrine. All right, that's pagan. Let's go back to the scriptures. Let's go to Psalm chapter 16, so we can get that precept that I was talking about. This is Psalm 16:10. For thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. All right, so it's the same word for hell, which is Sheol. Okay, all right, you see it's the same word, Sheol. All right, and so Yahweh Shai didn't go to hell. He wasn't tormented in hell. He wasn't down there for 3 days. He didn't go down there and fight with Satan, all of that nonsense that the Christians think. No, he was just in the grave. All right. And Yahweh rose him back up on the third day. So he didn't see corruption, okay? Thou wilt not suffer thine holy one. So this is a prophecy about Yahweh Shai to see corruption, all right? That's what that's going into, okay? So now let's move on to the New Testament. Let's go to Matthew chapter 11, verse 23. And it says, and thou, Capernaum, which art exalted unto heaven, shall be brought down to hell. Oh, so they was in a high estate, because Capernaum was on earth. So it's not like, what the Christians think about heaven. No, it's just okay, they was in a high up, lofty state. And, they started doing wickedness. All right? Shall be brought down to hell. They're going to be brought down to a low estate. Okay? For if the mighty works which have been done in thee had been done in Sodom, it would have remained unto this day. All right? So, let's look at this word hell, which should go into Hades, which is basically the same thing as Sheol. Okay, that's what it's describing. All right, so this is Hades. And you notice how they put these pagan gods in there, because they basically try to attribute, a lot of things in the scriptures to stuff, with pagans, because, these heathens got a hold of our book. All right, but if you look down at number 3, it says, latter use of this word, the grave, death, hell. But number 1 says Hades or Pluto, the power of the lower regions. And that's all paganism, all right? That has nothing to do with the scriptures, all right? So Hades is just Sheol, all right? The grave, all right? Of being in a lower state. That's what it's talking about, okay? Now, let's go and look at the definition of Hades. Let me see. So that's Sheol. Here's Hades, all right? So Hades, etymology disputed perhaps from the negative participle a and the verb ideen, that which is not seen, the invisible one. In Greek mythology, see? They always come into Greek mythology. Greek mythology has nothing to do with the scriptures, all right? The power of the netherworld, but the term was then applied to the underworld itself, that is, the abode of the dead. The term is used in the New Testament, is contrasted with the final punishment of the wicked, and reflects the Old Testament concept of Sheol. Although the Greek word is uniformly translated as hell in the KJV, this latter term is properly thought of as the final destiny of the wicked, and thus as the appropriate rendering of Greek Gehenna. Okay, the New Testament generally does not give definite light on Hades. Okay, Matthew 11:23, which we just read, or Luke 10 and 15. Our Lord says that Capernaum will go down into Hades. The preposition down points to the Old Testament teaching that is Sheol inside the earth. No, they got it wrong. All right, that's just talking about that town going down into a lower state. Okay, it's going to be trouble. All right. Let's see. And it says in the following verse, puts the day of judgment for both Sodom and Capernaum later than the stay in Hades. In the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, the rich man is pictured as being tormented in Hades, but able to see in the distance Abraham and Lazarus by his side. Now, this is a parable basically trading places between Esau and Jacob. So on this side, Esau's at the top. So just like while they were, alive, Lazarus was in a lower state, just like the Israelites are currently. Okay, and the rich man was in a higher state, just like Esau. Okay, so it's a parable. But in that world to come, because Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it, all right, Jacob is going to be elevated. He's going to be in his heaven, the kingdom of heaven, okay? And then Esau is going to be in his lower state, hell, okay? He's going straight into captivity, all right? And he's going to get punished, all right? So that's what that parable was going into, all right? It's not talking about him down there, burning, for real, okay? That's not what that parable was going into. And it says, he asked for a drop of water to cool his tongue, for a message to be sent to his 5 brothers who are still alive on earth. In each case, his request is denied. In the first Christian sermon, Peter quotes from Psalms 16, 8 through 11, proving from it that our Lord arose from the dead and was not left in Hades. In the book of Revelations, death and Hades are 4 times associated, being treated as almost synonymous terms. In the last verse mentioned, death and Hades are to be cast into the lake of fire that is doomed to utter destruction. Okay, so how can you cast hell into the lake of fire? That's one concept that we will go over, in this lesson. Okay, so if hell is a place where you burn forever, how is it going to be cast into another place that's burning? That don't make sense. All right, what that's talking about is basically the Israelites will never be in a lower state again. They're never going to be in torment again. They're never going to die again. They're going to live. They're going to be immortals. All right? That part of being an Israelite is going to be over forever. All right? We will be just like Yahushua. Okay? When he returns, when we see him, the elect, they're going to be changed in the twinkle of an eye. All right? We don't know what we shall be, but we're going to be just like Yahushua. Roughly paraphrasing. Okay? So that's what that's going into. Now, let's go back. Since we got that, let's go and find Gehenna. Go to Matthew chapter 5. So Matthew chapter 5 verse 29. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is perishable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And this is parabolic. This is not telling you to go pluck out your eye or cut off any limbs of your physical body. All right? That's not what this is talking about. Okay? So the body, is made up of believers. Okay? So, if somebody's going off that done turned aside to evil, do like Paul said. Paul said, I've cast him out to Satan, basically. All right? So you cut that member off. All right? Then let it corrupt everybody else. Or if you're struggling, with something, you basically cut that impurity off. You don't let it persist in your life. But it's not telling you to go physically harm yourself. All right? So now, when it talks about should be cast into hell, well, let's look at this word hell, and this hell goes into Gehenna. All right, Gehenna. Hell is a place of future punishment called Gehenna, or Gehenna of fire. This was originally the valley of Hinnom, south of Jerusalem, where the filth and dead animals of the city were cast out and burnt. Okay? A fit symbol of the wicked and their future destruction. Now, we'll go get some scriptures on the valley of Hinnom. Okay, so that was originally a place where they used to sacrifice idols and stuff. I mean, they used to do like child sacrifice to idols. Slakia. Okay, so and then it got turned into basically like a trash heap and stuff, where stuff would just get burnt up, and it get burnt up really thoroughly, and it would just be utterly destroyed. All right, and it says of Hebrew origin, valley of Hinnom, or Gehenna, a valley of Jerusalem, used as a name for the place or state of everlasting punishment, hell. All right, and so this is still coming from the Christian's perspective of a place where you go and you burn forever. No, this is used parabolically as a way to tell the Israelites, using a reference of something that they know about. Like, they know this trash heap. They know what happens there. Stuff get burnt up there. He's warning them in a parabolic way of the future destruction that's going to come. All right? And just like the prophets are always telling you about the thermonuclear destruction that's going to come to Babylon the Great. And you find it all throughout the scriptures. Okay? So that's what he was talking about. That's what he was warning them about. Okay? He wasn't warning them about a place called hell that you just go and burn there forever, and once you're there, you just done and you just burn there for all eternity. No. All right? Now, the people who will get judged in the lake of fire, we don't know exactly, how long Yahweh Hashem Yahushua will keep their spirits there. But we know that the scriptures tell us all Israel shall be saved. So how is a 2/3 Israelite going to go and burn in hell forever? They're not. Okay? They will, eat the missile here in Babylon the Great and, be engulfed in the lake of fire. And then their spirit will return in the kingdom. All right? That's what's going to happen. Now, I wanted to go back to the Old Testament to look at the Valley of Hinnom. Now, if we go to 2 Chronicles, which would be a good place, 2 Chronicles, let me see, is it 2? No. 28, yeah. 2 Chronicles 28. We'll start at verse 1. Okay, and it says, Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. But he did not that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, like David his father, for he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and made also molten images for Balaam. Moreover, he burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burnt his children in the fire, after the abominations of the heathen whom Yahweh had cast out before the children of Israel. He sacrificed also and burnt incense in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. All right, so it's a place that wickedness was done. And as you saw in the New Testament, got turned into a trash heap. So let's look at Hinnom. All right, Lamentation, a valley, deep and narrow ravine with steep rocky sides located southwest of Jerusalem, separating Mount Zion to the north from the hill of Evil Counsel and the sloping rocky plateau of the plain of Rephaim to the south. All right. And if you look at strong definition, this basically say Hinnom, apparently a Jebusite Hinnom. All right. And so that's where it comes from. Okay. And you see this happen again, something similar, 2 Chronicles chapter 36. No, 33 and verse 6. And it says, and he caused his children to pass through the fire in the valley of Hinnom. Okay, so it's a place of child sacrifice initially. All right. Also, he observed times and used enchantments and used witchcraft and dealt with a familiar spirit. For wizards, he wrought much evil in the sight of Yahweh to provoke him to anger. So you can look at it as, oh, this place where much wickedness was passed, it got turned into a trash heap, and they burn a fire there that lasts a really long time. Something like what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. Something like which is destined to happen to Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America. All right? We know America's going to burn for a really long time, but we know that eventually this is just going to be like a desert heap, and there's going to be, unclean beasts roaming all around here. So it's not going to be on fire for like all of eternity. It's just going to be on fire for a long time. All right? And we not coming to live here. All right? It's just going to be this sort of monumental warning to people not to disobey Yahweh Shem Yahushai, not to be all wicked. All right? So that's the understanding there. All right? And if we go back to, 2 Kings 23 and verse 18. Let's see. Maybe it's verse 2. Oh, yeah. This is another one. Verse 10, and it says, and he defiled Tophet, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. Okay? So one of the righteous kings, okay, this is what he did. All right? So Josiah, all right? So he basically defiled that place so that he couldn't go there and, basically turned it into a place of offerings to these gods, all right? So he did what was right, all right? So that's it for part one of this. I'll be back with part two. So, Shalom, Yasharala. Hope this was edifying.